Welcome to this explainer. Today we're diving straight into a fascinating and often deeply misunderstood medical mystery. We're exploring hypersomnia, which is a condition where sleep, literally no matter how much you get, just isn't enough to make you feel awake.
Picture this for a second. You settle into bed, you sleep like a rock for a massive 12 to 14 hours, but when you finally wake up, you feel like you haven't slept a wink. Your brain is trapped in a fog, your body feels like lead, and the urge to just crash and go right back to sleep is totally overwhelming. Now that's not just a rough morning. That is the exhausting, everyday reality for people dealing with an invisible illness that basically hijacks their waking life.
So what's actually happening here? Well, hypersomnia, or what the medical world formally calls central disorders of hypersomnolence, is a category of chronic neurologic sleep disorders. And I really want to emphasize that word neurologic. We are not talking about everyday laziness, a bad work ethic, or that typical burnout we all feel after a crazy week. This is a very real physiological condition, causing extreme daytime sleepiness, even when a person is getting perfectly healthy or honestly excessive amounts of nighttime sleep.
Here's the roadmap for our explainer today. We're going to cover 1. Beyond just being tired. 2. Primary versus secondary hypersomnia. 3. Narcolepsy and idiopathic hypersomnia. 4. What causes extreme sleepiness. 5. The diagnostic toolkit. And 6. When to seek help. All right, let's jump into Section 1, Beyond Just Being Tired.
The defining symptoms of hypersomnia go way beyond normal fatigue. One of the most striking clues is something called sleep drunkenness. Medically, it's known as severe sleep inertia. It's this extreme, painful difficulty waking up, where patients feel deeply disoriented, confused, and sometimes pretty irritable. Then look at their daytime naps. For most of us, a 20-minute power nap is great, right? But for someone with a hypersomnia disorder, naps often stretch longer than an hour and leave them feeling even worse. Add in this persistent brain fog, overall cognitive slowing, and even sudden sleep attacks, where they fall asleep uncontrollably, and you can really see how the brain's wake-sleep switch is malfunctioning.
The really tough part? Because these patients look perfectly fine on the outside. Their severe cognitive impairment and constant need for sleep are constantly misinterpreted. But make no mistake, this profound daytime sleepiness completely tanks academic performance, makes holding down a job incredibly difficult, and puts a huge strain on personal relationships. It's a physiological battle just to stay present.
Moving right along to Section 2, Primary versus Secondary Hypersomnia. To solve this sleep mystery, specialists have to divide hypersomnia into two main categories: primary and secondary. Secondary hypersomnia means the extreme sleepiness is basically a symptom caused by an outside culprit. We're talking things like obstructive sleep apnea, maybe a head injury, or even a side effect from certain medications. Primary hypersomnia, on the flip side, means the disease occurs completely on its own. The sleepiness isn't caused by anything else. That broken sleep-wake mechanism in the brain is the core disease.
Which brings us to Section 3, Narcolepsy and Idiopathic Hypersomnia. Now this is where it gets really interesting. Let's contrast the two main primary sleep disorders. Narcolepsy is famous for sudden, irresistible sleep attacks. But surprisingly, when a person with narcolepsy takes a quick nap, they often wake up feeling temporarily refreshed, and their brain jumps into REM sleep incredibly fast. Idiopathic hypersomnia, or IH, is a totally different beast. The sleepiness in IH isn't sudden at all. It's a constant, heavy, unyielding fog. People with IH can sleep up to 14 hours at night, and those daytime naps we mentioned, they're long, entirely unrefreshing, and come with a heavy dose of that severe sleep drunkenness.
And here's a wild statistic for you. When we look specifically at narcolepsy type 1, which involves sudden muscle weakness known as cataplexy, a whopping 95% of these patients share a specific biological marker. They have definitively low or even undetectable levels of a wake-promoting neurotransmitter called orexin in their spinal fluid. It's a massive missing piece of their neurochemical puzzle.
So, let's look under the hood. Section 4. What causes extreme sleepiness?
These conditions are deeply rooted in neurochemical imbalances. For narcolepsy type 1, scientists actually believe an autoimmune process destroys those vital orexin-producing neurons we just talked about. But with idiopathic hypersomnia, orexin levels are actually normal. Instead, researchers suspect there's an overproduction of a specific peptide in the spinal fluid that acts almost like a built-in sleeping pill. It ramps up the activity of GABA-A receptors, constantly screaming at the brain that it's time to sleep.
We also see disruptions in the brain's default mode network and clear genetic predispositions, with these primary disorders usually popping up first during adolescence or early adulthood.
So, how do doctors figure all this out? Section 5. The Diagnostic Toolkit.
Getting a diagnosis is a rigorous process of elimination. The journey usually kicks off with tools like the Epworth Sleepiness Scale, combined with 2 to 3 weeks of strict sleep diaries. Often, patients will wear an actigraphy device, basically a medical-grade sleep tracker, to confirm their patterns. Next up is an overnight sleep study in a lab, called a polysomnography, mainly to completely rule out secondary causes like sleep apnea. Then, the very next day, they do the Multiple Sleep Latency Test, or MSLT. This is a daytime nap test in a quiet, dark room that objectively measures exactly how fast someone falls asleep and how quickly they hit REM sleep. That test is the gold standard for separating narcolepsy from idiopathic hypersomnia.
Finally, let's talk about the real-world impact. Section 6. When to seek help. Let's be absolutely clear about this. Untreated hypersomnia is not just an annoyance. It is incredibly dangerous. The cognitive hits you take, slower response times, memory decline, lapses in attention from microsleeps, they lead to a severely increased risk of car accidents and workplace hazards. Getting behind the wheel when your brain is chemically fighting to shut itself down is a massive safety risk, both for the patient and everyone else on the road.
So, when is it time to wave the white flag and call a specialist? Well, if you or someone you know is dealing with persistent, crushing fatigue that simply does not go away even after getting 7 to 9 or more hours of sleep, it's time to act. Look out for that severe difficulty waking up or experiencing automatic behaviors where you do things on autopilot without remembering them. And most importantly, if you have any safety concerns while driving or noticeable cognitive decline at work, do not just brush it off. You need to consult a sleep specialist.
As we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with a thought to reflect on. Take an honest look at your own sleep health. When you're struggling to keep your eyes open during the day, ask yourself, is this just normal tiredness from a crazy schedule? Or are you fighting a deeper neurological mystery where your brain's sleep switch is genuinely broken? Figuring out the difference could absolutely change your life. Thanks for joining me on this deep dive into the science of sleep.